prison, and we'll talk about it more, is it feels like it has changed you so profoundly, almost like that was the stopper for the previous life and an opening for a new life.
Yeah, that was sort of like, I'd say coming home was the end of the first chapter of my life, and it really was sort of like, re-beginning in a lot of ways. I spent 29 years of my life learning how I like to express myself, what I like to do, and what have you. And I spent the next 8 years of my life, trying to find myself, in that reality of prison, and that was a real journey, physically and mentally and emotionally, and there was a lot of growth. I feel like, even though I was, 29 years old or so when I went in, I was extremely immature, immature. So that was sort of like, where I became a man. And then I came home, and it was very awkward because I certainly wasn't the same person I was, when I went in. It's a different environment than the last 8 years that I had spent. And the way you interact with people, the way you deal with feelings and emotions and all this kind of stuff. So the way I dressed, I was just kind of like in this in this awkward stage, but it was also very gratifying and inspiring, because I used to say to myself, all I want is another chance. I used to literally just sit there and say to myself, I just want another chance. And I felt like that I was offered that opportunity, and sort of, and that's, what I'm in the process of building today. Things are coming together for me, and life seems to be on the trajectory that maybe I wish it was 25 years ago or 20 years ago or something like that.
But if you could erase it, would you erase it?
Well, again, that's a question that I think I'll only be able to answer, with my last dying breath. So I'll have to get back to you on that.
I'll be privileged. We're not gonna get there, but to see you on your last breath. But
that'll mean this was all a big success. And,
right? Exactly. No, but I mean, success, right? And we've talked about it even sort of behind the scenes and before. Is such an interesting word, because so many things, people define it in so many different ways, and I love talking to you precisely because, to me personally, and I'm sure to a lot of people it will be the same, you are a great example of success, because I don't think that people really understand certain things, because 8 years in prison, just that number, I cannot, it's such a long period of time being in one place, and the way you describe it, it's horrifying, and I'm sure it is horrifying, by anybody's description, the fear, the things that you saw there, and just things that you have to develop in yourself in order to just survive. And on top of that, 2 years in solitary confinement, right? Or
just about, it's like 18 months or something like that.
Which is another crazy thing that most people, luckily, will never experience. But at the same time, it's...
Well, there was some real benefits that came out of that too. I mean,
benefits?
Yeah, no, I think, as in anything in life, it's a matter of what you decide to do with the moment, and that was actually a real turning point for me, because I figured out that in order to try to make this, my time that I was going to be in prison worked for me. I needed to take some of my freedom back. And the way that I figured out how to do that was by growing as a person. And that ended up giving me the sort of motivation to, not only survive, but thrive. Which I feel like I did under those circumstances.
I feel so too. By what I've been reading, what you describe, I definitely feel that you
and that sort of that epiphany happened in under those circumstances. When when I was just sitting in a little box. I remember I had just been I was sentenced twice. So my first sentence was for 5 years. I was about 1.5 years into that when I got another sentence, when they doubled my sentence. And at that time, I was also in solitary confinement. And I remember going back to my cell at the end of that sentencing and initially it was pretty profound. I felt like something inside of me was sort of breaking, and maybe it was. But instead of just going to pieces, and this was not over, this was over the course of probably days, maybe even weeks, I figured out how to kind of, put those pieces back together. And that was under the auspices that, in fact, I was going to do everything that I could do in a day, even sitting in a cement box, to put myself in the best position to lead a life that I felt pride about, and so that was that's what sort of, allowed me to get out of the rack every morning, allowed me to be so disciplined. And then some of these traits that I thought I intrinsically did not come with, like discipline was one of them. I thought I didn't have that trait or characteristic, which is, if not the most important ingredient, certainly one of them to a successful life. But I was able to, over the years, not only realize that in fact I did have some of these traits and characteristics, but I had them in spades. I just had to give myself the chance to exercise them. And that's what every day, every moment was for me while I was away. It was really an exercise. Just like people exercise their muscles, you get bigger, you exercise your mind, get smarter, exercise your soul, get wiser, and it was kind of the, was my sort of motto, I guess.